people say, it's got to be a sad job, it's got to be a sad profession, but there's so much reward in it because people entrust me with the most valuable possession of their life, and that's their loved one. And if we can give them a service that's meaningful to them, that they will remember for the rest of their lives, and they come up to you after that service and they give you a hug or they give you a handshake and they say thank you, it makes all the work worthwhile, and it makes me understand that God did call me into this profession, and that's why I'm here.
Hi, I'm Lynn Prickett Austin, and I'm Tommy Prickett's daughter, his oldest child. When we first moved to Carthage in 1957, the hearse was not housed at the funeral home because there was no place for it. There was no garage.
Tommy Prickett and my father were very good friends. Tommy Prickett moved next door to me and my parents at the time he purchased. As a matter of fact, the hearse stayed parked in our garage for many years.
Whenever Dad needed the hearse, he would go down there and pick up the hearse and go take it for a funeral, or he would take someone for an ambulance trip, say to Chapel Hill or over to Moore County Hospital.
The 40s and 50s and 60s was funeral homes ran the ambulance service. The funeral directors, if somebody was in an accident, they would go get the hearse ambulance. It was a combination car.
Did we lie down in the back of the hearse? Yes, we did. Did we ever lie down in the back of a casket? Yes, we did. And we all had our favorite casket picked out. Mine was called the Green Hornet because it was this beautiful, shiny green casket. Oh, it was just so gorgeous. I got to lie down in it one time, but Dad told me I couldn't get back into it because it might be a bad omen or something. Dad was a member of the JCs, which is the Junior Chamber of Commerce. He was also a member of the Rotary. And he met so many different folks through there. He was a volunteer firefighter. When I was a kid growing up, there was several summers where people just didn't die. And if people don't die, then you don't have any money coming in. So Dad would help other folks out doing odd works around their homes. And then someone would die, say they're a farmer. They haven't gotten paid yet themselves. So what he would do is he would take trades. Oh, we'd get a bushel of potatoes, or we'd get a bushel of corn, or eggs. If someone came to the funeral home and needed help with their electric bill, he would give them cash if he had it to help pay for their electric bill. Just a kind, generous man.
Tommy loved all aspects of funeral service. He was so dedicated to every aspect of it. He did everything because he was the only funeral director that worked here for so long. He had a couple of part-time people that helped him. Hubert Fry worked with him for many years. Moss Fry worked with him for many years.
Moss Fry worked with Dad, and he worked with Dad for a lot of years. I don't remember how many years it was.
I remember also how hot it was, of course, in Carthage in the summer times, and not many folks had air conditioners in their homes. But they had an air conditioner in the funeral home here, and it was a window unit. Those window units would keep it ice cold. So when I'd leave the swimming pool in Carthage, I would come up, walk uptown, get a cookie, get a sucker on a rope, and I'd walk into the funeral home to visit a little bit with Moss Fry, who was a great friend of our family's, worked in the funeral home for many years and had a great sense of humor. One Saturday I came in and Moss Fry asked me, had I ever touched a dead body? And I said, no, I hadn't. I was probably 8 years old, 10, probably 10 maybe. And I said, no, I had not. He said, well, everyone needs to have been able to say they've touched a dead body, and we have a body in here right now, and you need to go touch him. I'll be right here. And I was afraid, of course, but he said, I'll stand right here at the door. Just go touch him on the cheek. And so I walked in the door of the chapel to the casket, and I looked at Moss, and he said, go ahead. So I touched his cheek, and the very second that I touched his cheek, Moss Fry turned the light out, rolled an empty Coca-Cola bottle across the floor, and slammed the door with me in complete darkness. Of course, he didn't leave me in there long, but he was dying laughing, and I was not laughing too much. But that's an example of Moss Fry's sense of humor. We all loved him. People in the town loved Moss. He just had a funny way about him. Yeah, I'll never forget that day.
Good evening. My name is Keith Marion. I'm the son of Luke Marion. My dad was mayor of Carthage back in the 60s for about 9 years, was a town commissioner. My dad had two great loves here in Moore County. One was the town of Carthage and the growth of Carthage, and the other was Sand Hills Community College. He was a charter trustee at Sand Hills, actually turned the first spade of dirt there. My dad loved Carthage, spent his entire life here. He had a number of small businesses, the most prominent of which I guess was Marion Furniture Company. That's the Marion building behind us here. Had the first color television in the area here in the furniture store, and he kept it in the window there, and I remember people coming by to take a peek in. It's the first time they got to see a color television. He had a laundromat in town and had a little farm. Lake Luke Marion was the location of that farm. He donated that property to the county there. Anything that he could do to promote Carthage, bring business to Carthage, he would do, even if it cost him out of his own pocket.
Dad has a machine. It's a very old machine. I guess it's from the 50s. And it's one of the old-timey Coca-Cola machines that dispenses the 6-ounce Cokes. You could go to Dad's at the funeral home and get a 6-ounce Coke and a pack of nabs. And everybody sat around and drank their Cokes because it was truly the best Coke you'll ever have, because those little 6-ounce Cokes just seemed to taste better. And you'd go in and just shoot the breeze, because that's the way you caught up with what was going on in Carthage.
Kind of Coke machine where you pull the small bottles out of it, and the bottles would have the name of where they were manufactured on the bottom of the Coke bottle, and there was always a bet if you were the closest or the furthest away, and then whoever won that bet would pay for the Cokes. My dad was a booster at Union Pines High School way back, when we were small, and Woodrow was the sports reporter for Union Pines forever.
At one point, Moore County had 5 newspapers. There was the Robbins Record, there was the Moore County News in Carthage, there was the Pilot in Southern Pines, and the Sand Hill Citizen in Aberdeen. At one point, Roy Park, who was a newspaper titan, came to Moore County and bought 4 of the 5 and merged them all together. Woodrow Wilhoit had had enough of that, and he came to work for Mr. Reagan. So when we acquired the Pilot in 1996, Woodrow came with the deal. He was just as comfortable talking about the strawberry crop or somebody's aunt who came to visit and brought a blueberry pie as he was talking about his beloved Union Pines football team. Woodrow would pound out his copy on the clickety-clack of a Underwood typewriter. And then of course we had, I think it might have been his niece, had to have it typeset into the computer so that we could put it in the paper.
I remember Woodrow Wilhoit very well. Most people know that Woodrow never drove, never had a driver's license, so he would walk everywhere he went or he would thumb a ride, and he was a wealth of information. I would often walk uptown to the post office and come back around by the Pilot office and stick my head in the door and speak to him. You could go into that office and there were Pilot and Moore County news papers everywhere, and it was a huge mess in there, but he always knew where everything was, and if you were looking for a picture or an article, you give him a few minutes, he would dig it out and find it for you.
My brother made a bet with me. He told me if East Carolina were to ever beat Carolina in Keenan Stadium, he'd go down on the 50-yard line and eat grass. Well, the very next year, we beat the Tar Heels, I think it was 34-17. A few months later, I was home visiting my parents. My dad always kept a current edition of the Moore County News on the coffee table. The headline read, "Marion eats grass at UNC." Woodrow had wrote up a little article after my dad telling him about the game.
I just remember one time watching the football game and seeing Woodrow down, and a play came his way to the sidelines. He stood on the sidelines taking his notes for the articles, and the play came his way and actually came into him. And when he got up, his tie, he wore a necktie even to those games, his necktie was caught up in his glasses, wrapped around his glasses, and he got up and just kind of, I guess embarrassingly a little bit, tried to carry on, but he had to remove that. And from the stands, it was just kind of a funny moment. You had to be there.
He would come to the ball games at Union Pines up until his death. I mean, I don't know that he retired. As far as I know, he just kept on working and just died.
At his funeral, I remember the mayor of Carthage gave a eulogy for Woodrow. Larry said, you know, Woodrow had so many talents, he was beloved by all, but singing was not one of his specialties. However, every Sunday, he would sing loudly and with great joy for all to hear, and certainly lightened up the mood at his funeral. I don't know of another community in the country that so beloves their community correspondent that they honored his memory and his legacy by naming a stadium after him. That tells you what he meant to his community and the people of that time who were fortunate enough to have such a caring and devoted journalist.